Hello, coffee makers. I'm Rick Weaver, and I've spent 30 years in information technology. I've seen firsthand that security is not just about checking boxes, it's about transformation. Today, we're talking strategic business value, and as a project manager with Thrive Next Gen, I focus on bridging the gap between technical teams and the executive suite. We'll focus on practical incident response and how to align your security with your overall business risk. Let's talk about security that actually supports innovation here on the Cyber Coffee Hour.
All right, hello, coffee makers, not coffee takers. I'm Dr. Joseph J. Burt-Miller Jr., the People's Chief, joined by Alfredzo B. Nash Jr., Master of Cyber Farms. Welcome to the Cyber Coffee Hour, broadcasting from the DMV with roots in Mount Vernon, New York. We bring you captivating conversations with today's most remarkable guests. Our mission is to share knowledge, deepen understanding, and build community across the vast realm of cyberspace. So get your coffee and let's go. All right, so for today's show, we'll have a coffee chat with Rick Weaver, a Thrive Senior Project Delivery Executive for Cybersecurity and Hybrid Cloud Governance. Now, Rick Weaver is a seasoned cybersecurity leader with over 30 years of experience in mission-critical IT and security programs. As a project delivery lead at Thrive, Rick specializes in guiding large-scale security transformations, making sure technology aligns with business risk and compliance. His expertise is rooted in the implementation of SIEM systems and incident response. Rick holds key credentials, including the PMP, Certified Ethical Hacker or CEH, and is known for translating complex security data into strategic business value for executives. Rick Weaver, welcome to the Cyber Coffee Hour.
Thank you.
All right. There we go. All right. So Rick, well, first, welcome to the show. I know it's been a while, but, we had some back and forth, but we finally made this happen. But as we love to do here on the show, just go around the virtual round table here. Just want to learn from you, just how things been going for you as of late.
Oh, it's been a crazy month to say the least. Between Cybersecurity Month and having some technology challenges around the house, it's been nothing but managing chaos.
Right. Alfredzo, how about you, sir?
So it's been rough. Yeah, double dip on cybersecurity awareness. Month kind of ran myself a little thin. Also had a little emergency with my son. He caught a little bug. The hospital to get some meds for. So it was really tough coming into this season and trying to really recharge and re-energize after Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Last tidbit, I am studying for the Security Plus after a 10-year hiatus, not taking that exam as well. So I look forward to just getting through the rest of the season, and hopefully I don't get sick myself.
Yeah. Well, that's part of the deal with kids. When they get something, you're gonna get it too. So
yeah, I know.
Spread the
All
love.
biological weapons.
But I was worried about my little man. It was actually a pretty serious situation.
Nah, but yeah, I hope he's doing well. Hope he's all right. Yeah, for me, just of course now we're in, I guess, month 2 of this government shutdown.
Oh, it's been a month already?
Yeah, we're in November now.
Oh boy.
It started on the 1st of October. Yeah, they're breaking all the wrong records, you know what I'm saying?
I know. Racing to the bottom.
Yeah, it's bad. So yeah, but outside of that, yeah, just try to find some things to be excited about. So recently, of course, we just had Halloween, so I did ring that in with. I went on a Ghostbusters movie marathon. Watching from the very first to the last. I omitted the 2016. I'm sorry, I just don't count that one. It's just wasn't all that good for me. But outside of that, I did enjoy it. Had a lot of fun doing that. All right, so Rick, as we get started here, so Rick, with over 30 years in the field, what is the single biggest shift you've seen in the mindset of executives regarding cybersecurity, and how do you effectively translate complex security telemetry into strategic insights that they can act on?
Cybersecurity over 30 years probably birthed. It evolved. There was no cybersecurity back in 1989, 1990 when I stepped on board. Well, the biggest challenge you had was getting antivirus on a computer, and making sure it didn't kill the performance of the PC, and then evolved into the email phishing attempts, and complex passwords, and now organizations take cybersecurity seriously for the first time, probably. And it probably started maybe 10 years ago. You really saw organizations diving in. My first experience with today's enterprise cybersecurity was around 2007. I worked for a large law firm, and our clients were your largest creditors, Capital One, Citibank, Ford Motor Credit, and they demanded that we perform a security assessment. So ultimately, we brought in a third-party company. They destroyed the network in no time. Externally and internally, they were able to hash the admin password in about 3 seconds, because the admin logged into every remote local PC. So
Yeah.
as to be expected, it was a train wreck. We got through it, and we'll do the remediation to meet the compliance. But it's a mess. So watching it evolve to where it is today, where every company, from your fast food restaurant to your coffee shop to your large scale enterprises, take cybersecurity with the utmost precedence. Mostly budgets are their constraints. So managing how to implement certain security practices within their boundaries, budget wise, can be a challenge at times. But it's been a great ride to watch it evolve back when it was nothing to where it
Right.
is today.
Right. No, and I think that's amazing to even witness, and for one, not just witness it, but experience it, just to see the different products, different processes, everything that's changed that has changed over time.
Right.
Um, and also that comes with a lot, having that experience, it comes a lot of learning too, right? I mean,
Oh
being
yeah.
able to see certain things, and you're able to even speak to a lot of different things that maybe some folks, I think about like folks who just getting started in the
Yeah.
field, right, Alfred? So like they may not even have an idea. They may read about it. And when we talk about that theory versus hands-on, sometimes you actually need to get your hands dirty and actually experience it for it to
Oh yeah.
really sink in.
Yeah,
Yeah. Never.
I think you're 100% on the money, right? So when you say just read about it opposed to living through it, Google's only 35 to 5 years old, I believe. They're only just hit 35 years old. And that was the first real company that I witnessed. I'm about to be 40 next month. That was the first real company I witnessed get hacked. And that's in textbooks now. So you're right.
Mhm.
It's kind of like, oh my God, like before the 20-year IT bend, or wherever that, transition occurred between InfoSec and IT to cyber now,
Right. Right.
most people have only read about it, like myself, in textbooks, like when I was in middle school, right?
I,
So, and then to that point, the college kids that come out now, they need to have an idea that those folks like yourself and Dr. Joseph are still out here in the industry,
sure.
ready to receive and new thought leadership and new ideas, because we don't know what's going to be present as an insight to this next generation of technology.
I think AI is going to totally change it. Now it's making it easier for the kids to get in there that can't even code, and
Oh yeah.
write these prompts, to create, not the best malware, but enough to be destructive, and deploying crypto lockers and stuff like that. We're going to see. I think we're going to see it ramp up here in the next few years.
It's funny you mentioned CryptoLocker. That's the first ransomware I've encountered in my career. Literally
And
10 years ago, that was the first ransomware. I didn't have any clue what it was. I worked at a disaster recovery company. I'm like, oh, this is malware. But
right,
nobody never really acknowledged ransomware until we had to see it in the field. We
right,
had to actually
right.
see it and observe what was going
Yeah,
on. So go ahead.
I was going to say I actually worked for a small managed service organization for a short stint. I won't mention the name because it didn't end well, but for him,
Oh,
not me.
sorry to hear that.
But we'll just say that we had a client, large client, who got someone clicked on the email link, crypto locker kicked in and encrypted the whole network. And I don't know what sent me down the rabbit hole, but somehow I looked up, the version of the crypto locker they had deployed, and I was able to find it was old enough. I found the public key, so I was able to go in there and unlock everything. Well, the owner of the company cleaned house, if you know what I mean. Basically,
Mm.
Oh boy.
he wasn't
Oh.
told to, So it was not, it wasn't ethical to me the way he ran him over the coals, because we were able to reverse the crypto locker, and instead of making it more about a cybersecurity lesson, don't click on those links, but yeah, the whole company was locked out, done, all their data was encrypted, and was able to find the public key and out on the forums, able to find the app to go out and unencrypt all the files. So basically, they had 2 copies of every file. One was encrypted, one wasn't, but we were able to, unencrypt it and get them their data back and put them back in business. I mean, not setting you back, months, weeks, and the financial ramification of that also too. Being able to continue your business versus having to dump a bunch of money into getting it back going again.
100%. So that segues into the next question pretty well, right? You said you specialize in SIEM implementation and incident response orchestration. Can you walk us through a real world scenario where your approach to these areas significantly reduced the impact to a major cyber threat? And you kind of touched on it, but can you walk us through the SIEM implementations?
Yeah, my role today with Thrive Next Gen is the account teams will go out and work with a client, and they'll secure a contract for SIEM or incident response or the various other EDR products. And ultimately, when the scope gets to me, I'll read through it. I'll get the teams that we need together on a chat channel, or we'll do a call. We'll review client's network, make sure we have access to it, make sure we can get access to the infrastructure, make sure we know where we're building out the collector for SIEM, whether internal or up in our cloud. Engaging the network team so we can build out the VPN if it's out in the cloud, so we can build a VPN out to our private cloud where the collector sits. And ultimately, we'll use our internal remote management tools to get in there and start collecting, point all the syslogs to the collector, and then once we get all the infrastructure pointing towards the collector, we'll then revamp and get the engineer on the call, and we'll walk through the process with the client one last time. Here's what you got. Here's the dashboard. When an incident comes in, a ticket will be created. If it requires escalation, we've already provided you a document where you'll in turn give us our calling tree, our escalation path. So if an event happens and SIEM collects it and the SOC gets it and it triggers an event, then we have a standard operating procedure to react and resolve it.
Nice. SOC, hoo ha ha.
Yeah.
And so with that incident response plan, right? Have you seen these real world detections and malware hitting your private cloud endpoints, or more so just your clients?
It's most of the clients. So I don't get to interact a lot with that. As a project manager, I'm out deploying the products. I don't actually get behind the scenes. I mean, I know what's happening, and we have to. I work with the account teams to reiterate to the customer what to expect. Ultimately, when they agreed to purchase the product, they obviously understood what it was supposed to do. But yeah, I mean, I've definitely I've been part of incident calls where a client had an event that triggered something, and maybe for some reason the project engineer, project team wanted to be on the call just to give any pertinent information. But for my role these days, it's typically deploying and implementing the products for the account teams, and then handing it off to the security team. So I work hand in hand with the security engineers and managers and directors and vice presidents when we talk about new products and how we're going to deploy them. Internally, there's a lot of conversation. Externally, the customer just sees us getting together. We give them a few marching orders. Fill out the form with your calling tree. Who's the responsible party? If it's 2:00 in the morning, am I calling you or am I emailing, or how do you want to react to this? But for the most part, the days are just grabbing the products and getting them deployed as quick and accurately as possible.
Nice.
Well, what's a key challenge companies face when trying to bridge the gap between cybersecurity frameworks and the practical, day-to-day operations of the business?
I think it's that balance of the more security you have, the less usability you have. So that balance of, when you secure it more, there's more complexities to use it, from a zero trust, environment, to bridging the gap with, having your EDR deployed and how it interacts with your programs, and sometimes they'll lock you out, until we get a whitelist going. I think the practicality of having the tools is important, but understanding the business impact that they have to the performance of the network, to the end user, understanding that, typically a vice president isn't technically astute as your typical IT admin. So all he wants to do is turn his laptop on and get to that important document and have that important telephone conversation. But all of these security tools are frustrating them because they can't make that happen easily. So it's just trying to focus those tools, the deployment and application of those tools, making sure that the more security you have, you can still balance it with some usability, and that in turn we have a balance between the two.
Do you ever see any pushback, or like I know a lot of times when it comes to when money's involved, when we talk about funding, you ever
Yeah.
see issues in relation to that?
In the early years, yes, all the time. It's they didn't want to spend the money until they got burned, and then when they got burned, I'm telling you, you're spending 4 or 5 times as much money as you would have spent if you would have did it before you got burned. And
Exactly.
today,
Yeah.
I think with the prevalent cybersecurity conversations, in the mainstream media, much less, the YouTube media, cybersecurity is always on the news for one reason or another. And so I think companies have learned that, your private information is out there, your databases have been, already copied somewhere, and it's only a matter of time before, you're going to have that security conversation. So, it's how are you going to have it, and watching the cybersecurity insurance vertical bloom,
Yeah.
knowing how expensive it is to rectify a cybersecurity incident, that insurance policy, could be the make or break of that business staying alive or going under, depending on the size of it.
I think you're 100% right. I didn't expect the boom that I'm seeing, and especially
Right.
the managed service space with cybersecurity policies, because I didn't know the policy was backed by you ensuring your posture. So that
Yep.
was a big surprise for me because you made an excellent point, right? You're like, hey, we haven't seen it in the early days, so why are we seeing it now, right? And I
Right.
think to your point, Dr. Joseph, the pushback comes from, well, I can afford that hit. I don't
Right.
think that's the right mindset. And I share your views, Rick. Like if we did it in the early days, pre the advanced ramp up and stuff of more,
Right.
sophisticated adversaries, more business process, more business data. Why are we? Hopefully, I don't get no flack for saying this, but why are we lowering the bar in the cybersecurity budget? Like, why are we aligning that to the mission, our business objectives, our
Right.
stakeholders that can say, "Hey, I don't want the VP to get popped." That seems like a real bad issue when we know it can happen more so now than we did, years ago.
Right. It's a balance of that budget, and what am I going to get from it, and it's simple as, selling dark web monitoring. They're like, why? I go, well, we want to watch the dark web for your accounting team's credentials or your vice president's credentials because someone's going to use them in a phishing attempt, and they don't understand what dark web monitoring is, and why it's important, until they have an incident where somebody pretended to be the vice president and told X lady to go deposit check B into this account A, and and all of a sudden they're out, $100,000, and it's real, it happens, and the customers I'll get sometimes are ones that have had a cybersecurity incident and their knees are shaking, and we need to get this deployed now to make them feel better. They've already gone through a remediation process. They found us because they got uh, threatened or attacked cybersecurity wise one way or another,
Right.
and they find Thrive. Thrive comes in, does a remediation, and now we're going to sell them additional products to keep it from happening again, to make them feel, make them feel confident. And those are the customers I know I got to hold their hand and make them, feel warm and fuzzy because uh, how hurt they are. You know what I mean? They're so
Yeah.
fragile now. To click on a link on an email, that's great, but unfortunately, you learned after the fact instead of, if we would have had a security awareness training process in place. Where every month or every quarter you spend 20 minutes just rehearsing, understanding what a phishing email looks like, understanding what uh, uh, PHI and HIPAA data is, and making sure that you don't pass that information along incorrectly, understanding that link that says it's from, your boss, and here's your Amazon gift card, and you're thinking, my boss never sends me an Amazon gift card. Thanks.
It's not
You know,
Christmas came early.
All right.
I got burned. I got burned. And I don't mind saying this. I took a role with Nutanix out in Silicon Valley. Started in December. Started
Oh,
the second.
Nutanix. You said Nutanix.
Yeah, Nutanix.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Hyperconverged infrastructure. And I started the role the second week of December, and my birthday is the third week of December. Well, when you start, like any good company, you test a new guy with cybersecurity training, So an email came in that said, "Hey, happy birthday! Here's your gift card. Thanks, thanks for joining." I'm like, "Oh, this company's awesome." Click, failed.
Oh.
So yeah, I mean, it was, perfect timing. Everything lined up that made sense to me, on the email that, it was my birthday, did start a new company, that, Nutanix, they love to give their money right. And, I fell for it and I lost.
And so it sounds like you're known for creating repeatable, risk-aware deployment models, right? Could you provide an example of how a company can utilize this approach to adapt innovation and new technologies without compromising the security posture, kind of with the gift card and birthday situation?
Yeah. Well, I think, every environment is risk aware. It's how, what your boundaries are, to mitigate those risks. And every budget, every company, every corporate mentality is different. As much as cybersecurity is taken the forefront, I've seen companies just have such a lackadaisical approach, to just, we're doing it to check a box, to no, we're doing this because it's important. We don't ever want to be, on the news. We don't ever want to lose our data. So I guess ultimately, I don't know if there's one approach. I guess is what I'm thinking.
So we have Rick Weaver here on the Cyber Coffee Hour, part of the live podcast network. As we get to the back half of the episode, we'll learn more about Rick and his endeavors, and also just maybe things he likes to do outside of work, but how he likes to relax as well. So I think that's important. We'll make sure we have that balance as we discuss.
Getting there.
Yeah. So Rick, you recently embarked on a fascinating new venture called Firewall Coffee, which connects IT professionals with exceptional roasts. So what inspired you to blend your passion for cybersecurity with the world of coffee?
I think you hit the key word there, passion. Firewall Coffee came to fruition through many a stumbles in the what's my side hustle, going to be in life? What can I do?
Right.
Did IT consulting, I've done all the IT things, and I stumbled down a path. If you've ever done, you guys are entrepreneurs in your own fashion, you go down, and one of the things you'll hear from people that you may take as your mentor, which I have a couple, whatever you're doing, make sure you're passionate about it. Don't go sell underwear, when you're more passionate about computers. Right, because which I did for my uncle at flea markets back in my younger years. I think it took me a while. I did the whole drop shipping thing. I'd done the whole print t-shirt thing. And I'm like, how do I take IT, and cybersecurity, and, and what's my niche, and I just about gave up on finding the coffee niche. I knew I wanted to do coffee because the market wasn't saturated, and I like coffee. IT guys drink coffee nonstop. Most of us do. So I thought, okay, that is a great blend. Let's take IT and coffee, and that's my niche. Then I'm like, how do you market this niche? And I think I struggled, and I end up. I'll give him a shout out. Joe Roberts, he Pod Ninjas. I paid him for some consulting time and helped him. He helped me ask the right questions and answer my own questions to come up with the product and come up with the names. Because I said the niche is too small. The IT professional niche is too small. We're not. It's gonna be too much work. It's not gonna work. He says, I disagree with you. I think it's a phenomenal niche, and the niche has the salaries that will buy a premium roast. They're not looking for an $8.99 Folgers. They're okay with a $19 box of premium roast that has a cybersecurity or technology branding flavoring around it. Because ultimately that's what we're selling is a great bean with putting that cool box on your desk or behind you, and
Not just we'll pipe up. Yes, we do make a reason to afford and make the contacts and contracts, right? But so I'm one of those guys. So you're right. I felt like we weren't heard in the incident response queues and cloud operations, and at a startup almost a decade ago, we almost had like a coffee riot when the machine stopped working. So everyone grabbed their Nerf guns and was like, "Yo, what's up, man? What's going on with the?" with the special machine, and then the actual owner responded. So during the reno of this building out in Connecticut, shout out to Datto, and then also give us your mentor's links too. We'll
Yeah.
include them in the show notes as well. But at Datto, it was like a whole, I guess, like vision to include like coffee machines near these pods. They were
Sure.
literal pods. They were like scrum pods in a call center, and every lead had like direct route to the kitchenette because he listened. He actually listened. His name, shout out to Austin McCord. He listened to how aggravated we were when we were like our whole tempo changed on the phones with incidents. You know, the cloud operations team wasn't as sharp, right? The developers especially. So your mentor gave you the sound advice. The developers are like the coffee ethos.
Yeah.
You know, so the whole IT shop came together and said the one thing we do agree on, even when we disagree, was coffee and how to keep it regularly stocked.
Yeah. You know, it was the challenge is like, how do you blend technology and coffee? You know, like, you know, what, and then, you know, working with him and allowing him to, you know, he was like a therapist. I would ask the question and then I would answer it. And he would say, you just answered it. You know, like, oh, you know, it's intriguing. You know, so taking that and then just going through the process of hiring a designer, you know, hiring developers for the shop, you know, coming up with using AI to help generate some branding, you know, some of the verbiage for branding, stuff of that nature that made the product, you know, feasible. It took probably a year and a half to get the product from the conversation to a storefront, you know, and now I'm learning something I have no clue about, which is marketing, you know, and you know, awesome to pair up with you guys and, you know, see how passionate you are and appreciate the opportunity to team up with you. It's interesting now trying to market, you know, because you got how do you market to that niche of, you know, IT professionals, cybersecurity, you know, developers, even project managers. You know, I got the project plan roast, you know, and you know, trying to find the niche that's interested in buying the coffee. You know, it's not something you just throw up in a Walmart store or an Amazon shop. You know, you really have to market it through content like yourselves, you know, where people are watching because they like cybersecurity, they're interested in the trends and latest conversations, and hey, maybe they like coffee too, you know. And so I started, you know, going down this path of working with content creators. A few were flops, you know, few were just random content creators that were willing to do content for product or something like that line. But the content, it was too broad, so it wasn't marketing to the niche. You know, so it was. So it's learning. I know nothing about marketing, you know, but I'm learning what I can.
I think you got it, brother. Go ahead.
No, so I was just gonna say one thing I take away from that, from what you said, Rick, was, you know, having, it just really shows the importance of having a mentor and, you know, being able to, one who's able to pour into and believe it, you know, in what, you know, taking that idea and then now it came to fruition now, and you know, even when you may have even doubted yourself for a bit, he still believed that this could happen. So
Yeah.
Even I think that's really a lesson even for folks, you know, for our listeners, you know, especially those who getting started, who just getting started, you know, please, you know, seek out mentors, and not just one mentor. I know you mentioned you use the plural.
Sure.
Yeah, definitely you want to have multiple mentors. There's nothing wrong with that because you have mentors that specialize in different areas. But the main thing is that as you're going through your career, you want to have someone that you could check in with and be able to, that can guide you and also be able to speak on your behalf, be able to speak in those rooms that where you're not able to be in yet, but they can help you get that career going.
Yeah, and you know, ultimately, Joe Roberts, his niche is print on demand, and he knew nothing about coffee, but he saw what I didn't see at the beginning. I'm like, coffee, IT. I say, I don't think it's going to work. He's like, oh no, that's a great niche. You know, so I focused on it. You know, then as I went through the process of branding and coloring and designing, you know, packaging. He said, let me see the packaging has to be, you know, packaging is important. You know, so going down that path, you know, and these are things that you don't know to ask yourself. So you need that mentor that to give you that guidance. You know, his guidance was building a brand for me. You know, then other engaging other people to help with marketing and understanding, you know, the concepts of marketing instead of just dumping money into your social media ads and paying, you know, $1 a click, and the click leads you nowhere, but you just spent $500. You know, that's
it's real. It's real.
Yeah, it's real. It is real, right? So I really think, you know, creating a bond with content creators, I think really, and actually Joe said this to me. He goes, you need to go find content creators, you know. But I'm like, how do I find, how do I know a content creator, what are they going to make? And I just
Wait a
started
minute.
down that path, and that's how I ended up finding Cyber Coffee out.
Yeah, that's an interesting parallel because we didn't know how to start content creating. And initially I defended Brother Joseph's thesis. And shout out to Wall Street Jones. I'm not gonna blow him up too much, but he's onboarded as a mentor of mentors, right? I've had several mentors in my life too. Miss Gibbs, shout out to Mount Vernon, New York. And it just dawned on me. We had opposite parallels. We were thinking like, well, let's look for coffee makers.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
if there's anybody to defend, let's look for them, or let's look for like the lowest, not so much the low, like what would they know about cybersecurity?
Right.
And then we kind of came full circle through the podcast industry. Somebody referred you to us, and we were like, "Oh, here's our first coffee maker." So I think it's it's intriguing because we were at opposite parallels. And then to your point, marketing, I don't know anything much about marketing. It took Brother Joseph to say, "Hey, we should do a podcast," and now it's like, oh, it's self-marketing. So I'm still learning this as we go. Like the whole podcast, and we said this on the other side of Firewall too. Shout out to them. The whole podcast industry kind of showed them and said, "Oh, that's different." So that reciprocating word of mouth amongst this industry, shout out to you as a coffee maker. Now, thank you for taking that opportunity to say, hey, let me reach out to this niche. Let me reach out to these content creators. It just dawned on me that that's where we were at parallels.
What made you want to blend cybersecurity and coffee? Your content is cybersecurity, compliance, SOC, whatever. What made you say, you know what, the name of our podcast needs to be Cyber Coffee Hour? What made you?
So that's a 3-part. You got it. I'll let you go.
Yeah. So I guess just real quick to get the backstory. So as I was working on my dissertation and I was recruiting people for my research, a mutual friend of ours, we let me know that Alfredzo was in the DMV area and he was doing cyber. Because we went to high school together, but we had lost. It was no beef or nothing. Everyone just that natural drift after high school. Everybody just, they started their lives after high school. So for me, I went to the military. So it's been a while since we stayed in contact. So let me know that he was doing cyber, and because he was saying I should reach out to Alfredzo. I was like, oh, I didn't even know he was doing that. So okay, yeah, give him my number. But anyway, so once we got going, and cause I did a qualitative research, so I'm doing interviews and surveys. So as we started doing a couple of those interviews, I was like, man, this is actually pretty good, So, I floated ideas like, hey man, you want to do a podcast? And Alfredzo was like, yeah. So I was like, all right, well, we'll circle back after I finish.
Right.
I spent all my time writing. But anyway, so as we circle back after I finished, after I defended, we just went to work, and but the main thing was that, yes, we want to tie in both of our desire, or I say our love or passion for cybersecurity as we're both working in the field.
Sure.
Of course, we both love coffee, so that's another element there. We're highlighting that aspect, and also the hour, whereas we want to make the content to stay within 1 hour conversations as we just listening to guests like yourself as we have them come on, and just hearing the different stories and different journey people going through. Because I think the main thing was that as we listened to the overall landscape of cybersecurity related podcasts, we noticed, there wasn't much emphasis or attention to those who may be having different struggles, or those who are just getting started in cybersecurity.
It's 5:00.
So it was more so like you already had to have a couple certifications under your belt in order to listen to a cybersecurity podcast, and I was like, that's not very inclusive.
Yeah.
So, just summarily, that's essentially how we got there. We talked about it more pretty much, I think, in season 1. That's a while back now.
Cool.
Yeah, and I could tackle on because a lot has changed since season 1. So after defending the dissertation, we didn't realize we worked at the same employer in the same state. So there was this social aspect, like social hour. Right. And then because it was, like you said, there wasn't really a highlight. And I came up with the idea too, because when I was in my life at the same startup, I realized like folks that were talking a lot about cybersecurity, they kind of got this like hubris about like, oh, they're experts in the field, and
Right, right,
I gotta be in the boardroom and blah blah blah. And then at the coffee machine, I realized like the amateurs kind of dialed out. So the amateur hour was like, how do I get in? How do I
hmm
break in if all these guys are top shots?
right,
And I said it to Brother Joseph. I was like, yo, we both love cyber. That there's an anagram. I'm not going to put it out on the air yet, but I want to protect it. There's an anagram that I came up with to protect the amateurs
right,
in that hour as well, because I felt like even me in my career, it was very formidable. It was
right,
very
right,
boring. You know, everyone really came in and they were like, "Oh, we're the expert. You can't make it in here. You can't do. Who are you to do incident response?" So I wanted to talk about it. And I
right.
said to Brother Joseph right after defending it, that 3 hour span was a lot. You know, I
Yeah,
needed a cup of coffee. It was a lot. We did a 3 hour span in the interview, and I said,
sure.
coffee is what makes me better at this. So we incorporated the name. We agreed.
Cool.
You know, we formed up and we said we're going to make the move into the
Yeah,
industry as a business. And so with those moving parts, we'll go right back into it. Right. You mentioned that cybersecurity has numerous moving parts and potential entry points. At Thrive, you actively involved in deploying security platforms to tackle this. Can you walk us through how you bring this together as a combination of top tier solutions, AI driven insights, and a team of certified analysts to provide critical 24/7 protection for your clients?
yeah. I mean, I'll give it to you from my view as a project manager. We'll get a scope that's been sold to a client, whether it's a 50 seat, 500 seat client, whether they bought incident response, some dark web monitoring, some EDR, some SIEM, the multitude of projects, automated pen testing, internal, external pen testing. I'll bring the teams together internally. We'll take a look at the scope, see if there's any blaring questions, get the account team to tell us a little about the client, any backstory we need to know about, recent incident, current fire, insurance compliance, something along those lines. And then we'll take an internal conversation, make sure we have access to the correct infrastructure, whether it's for pen testing or deploying some of the other products, making sure that we have control of that infrastructure. And if we don't, then we come up with a process to help the customer deploy the product. We don't like to do that. There are certain customers that we're willing to do that for, but ultimately, we want to deploy the product from begin to end to control the quality of, and the outcome of the security service. So once the internal team has had our conversations, I'll reach out to the customer, introduce myself, introduce the team, and then we'll get a project kickoff call. From there, we'll review that scope of work. We'll tell them, we'll help them understand how we deploy penetration testing, what we need, what we're going to do, what these tests could cause. Common occurrence when deploying or using penetration testing is sometimes we touch a printer. And that printer just goes cattywampus. It's just dumping paper everywhere. It's eating up your
Yeah.
counter. And we warn them it's going to happen. And they want to schedule it. Can we schedule it after hours, on a Sunday? No.
Right. Please no.
The cyber instance is going to happen at 10:30 a.m. on a Thursday as you're trying to wind down the week, and there. So we go through the ins and outs of the products, making sure they understand, the escalation path. As we're deploying the product, sometimes, we'll do pilot groups as we push out agents. Give us 5 or 10 workstations or endpoints, push out an agent for whatever product we're working with, making sure that we don't interfere with their production environment. Once we get the
Right.
thumbs up from them, push out to production, and then the rest is bringing it down to a handoff call with the engineers. Here are your dashboards. Here's the data you're going to see. Here's what you can do with it. Here's how the SOC will react to whether an event from EDR, from Qualys, from any type of the product we deployed, and basically hand it off to the security, the SOC and support service desk team.
Have there been any clients you'd say after doing this now? Are there some clients and you don't have to name any names, but
Yeah.
are there some of your favorites, or maybe someone you're not so favorite?
I've had, you know what? One of my taglines I like to use when I talk to people about my job or my career, or my world, is I function fluidly in chaos. I love chaos, and
Chaos engineer.
yeah, I have to tell you right before our show, we obviously know we had some trying times, before we kicked off the recording of the podcast. But literally 45 minutes before that, I was recharging a battery pack down in the data center below me, and I forgot this thing, as it charges, it goes from 100 watts, 200 watts, 400 watts, and it ends up around 800 watts. Well, I had plugged it in to my PDU on my rack. You know where this is going. I came upstairs to go talk to the wife about something, went downstairs, and my data center is pitch black. And I am like, what did I do? And it took me, 10 minutes of, okay, the batteries are on. And there was a little tiny reset switch in that PDU I couldn't see, and that took down the whole network. So, you know what? I've worked with big colleges. I've worked with large law firms. I've worked with small mental health. I run the gamut. I mean, people that understand the product are easier to work with. People that don't understand the products but want the outcome that was sold to them. And sometimes that outcome is different than they have a different perception what the outcome is going to be versus the actual outcome that the product does. A certain customer expected X amount of type of reporting coming from SIEM that he could control, and he wasn't told that, no, that reporting goes into a collector, collected and dumps it over to ServiceNow, and an event, is a certain level, it triggers a SOC ticket, and that ticket in turn might engage your calling tree for a response on your side. So I guess these are all my favorite. I love chaos, and cybersecurity is nothing but chaos these days.
So I'm very curious, and we're gonna tie this to the next question a little bit, right? So Rick, with a career as long and as accomplished as yours, we're curious about what was the first technology or interest of yours in cybersecurity, and what was the first piece of technology that sparked your interest in cybersecurity? And can you take us back to like the mid 80s and tell us about one pivotal experience, including some early scripting and memorable visits from federal agents that sets you on the path that you are on today?
Yeah. Well, let's see. My world started out probably 12, 13 years old with the Timex Sinclair 1000. If you don't know what it is, Google it. It is a little baby computer, membrane keyboard, 16K memory module. And I would load Flight Simulator from 2 cassette tapes while we were cooking and eating dinner. So it took an hour-ish to load Flight Simulator so I could play Flight Simulator on a TV, that the graphics were just as good as Pong, at that point. I had an aunt who worked in the computer industry back in that time, and she got me a Commodore, either the VIC-20 or the 64. I had them both, but it was the Commodore 64 that took me down the path. I was logging in the BBS's early days with Dad brought home a teletype. We don't need to know from where. We just happened to have a teletype machine in the house, and I had some old 300 baud data sets. You had to listen, hang it back up, hit the red button. I got engulfed in the BBS world, way before Freenet and the internet, what it is today. So in that world, we all interconnect, and stumbled across a board that dealt with phone phreaking, and that took me down the path of phone phreaking for a while, blasting some 26 kilohertz tones into the data switches and taking them over. It was good old days. I was a kid. It was something to do. And that led me into let's just say I was collecting calling card numbers. Back in those days, calling card numbers were 9 digits. And all we would do once we got a calling card number was call a radio station and request a song in a different state. Just something stupid. It was a game. It wasn't meant to be financially malicious to anyone. Ultimately, had an acquaintance in high school who was going off to college, and he wanted a number so he could call his girlfriend in college. And I said, that's fine. Make sure you call payphone to payphone. And he did, and he called from dorm to dorm, and that ultimately ended up being a problem for me. His dad worked for one phone company, and the other phone company was upset that I was toying with their network. I guess then that evolved, ultimately, I think, now I have to go back to think, what was the direction of your question there, Doc? Forgot now.
No, you're getting there. So you're the guys I read about. I'm just gonna say that, so coming of age, and like you said, a generational curve. The phone was handed off to the internet. So a lot of the guys that were before us, they tinkered with phones and the gigahertz. I put 2600 in the chat because by the time I got to college age, that was the first like real group that showed up. like
Right.
literally showed up in InfoSec and industries. You got to the point of why the feds showed up because you were messing in a pioneer technology, right? And well, I guess somebody was tracking you or watching back on your dad's activity, but also you knew what you were doing. It looks like.
I don't think my dad had anything to do with it. I think ultimately the person who was using the numbers that we were borrowing, he got a knock on the door from the FBI, and
Oh, wow.
he said, well, I got it from him. No, well, I did. So had to have that conversation. But it was back in those days, it was not nearly as detrimental as it is today. It was.
Oh, yeah.
What other
You know,
question?
it was a don't do that again, and pay us some money, and okay, done. If that would happen today, game over. But the technology, there was no caller ID. These were analog switches, maybe some digital switches too, but they were. It was older technology, and if they didn't go kick on that guy's shins and make him bark, then life would have been fun. But anyway, it's a learning. Like I said, for me, it wasn't malicious. So I know it was wrong, yeah, but it was more of it was a game. It's like, let's see what we can get, let's see what we can do. So
Reminds me of the movie War Games.
It is. It essentially is. We grew up.
Yeah.
So wait. Let me unpack. Thank you, Brother Joseph, because that was around middle school, right?
Yeah.
It was Rick's group that handed us. My cousin's a little older. I'm just gonna cough it up. Not gonna put his name out there, but he watched all of that. He watched those shows. He watched Sneakers. He watched those things, and then as soon as the internet was coming online, he turned the phone numbers backwards to get free AOL. And it's because of your errors, because of your group, when y'all was tinkering around, it worked.
Yeah,
It worked. So he would go door to door, turning phone numbers backwards to get free AOL, and then came on the internet. Then the internet came along. It was like handed off to our group. So you're right, Doctor. It's exactly that. So the only difference I would say is that to Rick's point is what's the saying that goes is life doesn't imitate art imitates life. So somebody got that movie from real world depictions, right? Like,
oh yeah, yeah.
That's right. So to go back to you were asking me what got me involved in cybersecurity. I've always been in computer security one way or another in that sense, and as I came of age, became an adult, got my first job in IT and never left. I knew what security was. I knew how to use it. I knew how to abuse it, and we all know, if you're an IT engineer administrator back in the early 90s, there was really no boundaries. It was so easy to do whatever you wanted. You controlled the kingdom. You had all the keys. Now we have segmented security. Passwords aren't shared; they're in password managers.
Right.
It's no longer does one guy have the key to everything, and that mentality has been a necessity for the industry because if not, then you would have the kids like myself who came up and understood the technologies and knew how to script it, or we knew how to change the gateway on a network. I go to class, I'm like, I can't get to the internet. I'm like, go start scanning the network. Oh, there's the gateway, because they were pointing you to a proxy where they blocked you. Well, I'm going to go find the gateway. I don't want a proxy, so.
So one caveat, I just want to put a disclaimer as we do on the Cyber Coffee Hour. That was 20 plus years ago. Back then, if you're lucky, like you said, fine, 5 years penalty, ankle bracelet. Today, do not mess around and find out.
No.
The 20-year difference that you're talking about now, because people are trying harder, that's the industry term, as we hand off to the next generation. Next generation is trying harder. You will get 25 years to life.
Oh, yeah.
So please, we have to say, yes, it's a cybersecurity podcast, but there are repercussions for tinkering around and actually, pushing the envelope in the next gen.
You want to wear the white hat at all times.
So, Rick, you have a very unique career path, balancing the structured, deadline-driven world of a senior project manager at Thrive with the entrepreneurial ambiguity of launching Firewall Coffee. But what has been the biggest challenge in shifting gears between those two different roles? And what have you learned about staying adaptable when things don't go according to plan?
Well, I thrive on not having a plan, which is kind of funny being a project planner. Had no idea I was going to take down my whole network, 15 minutes before we were going to go on the air. And I think not allowing that stress to overtake you, but allowing you to step back, almost like, and I have not been in the military, but I'll like you were trained by the military, remain calm, think it through, start finding the steps you need to solve the problem, and when Firewall Coffee came to fruition, I had no clue the amount of time I needed for it. Can't spend it, but there's so much time needed to design a brand, design a product, work with the product vendor, working with the roaster and the packaging, and working with the shipping and doing all of that I wasn't trained on, didn't know anything about. Use mentors, use various forums, talking with people like yourself, and finding that balance. Career is always first. I'm always watching the career right now. I'm watching AI and how AI is evolving, even the cybersecurity world. How much longer are NOC analysts going to be needed? With the evolution of the AI, doing this work. I don't. We all have to adapt and evolve, but I'm like, wow, so much is going to change quickly with AI. As I use AI to help me promote the brand, Firewall Coffee, you'll see some of the advertisement are AI generated, people holding the product, give them the script, and
Oh,
wanna,
a second. Yeah. We do here too.
yeah. I'll take part of this and I'll make it, I'll make it an AI generated ad. I mean, it's the amount of time needed for Firewall Coffee is more immense than I anticipated, but I love it. Wife is supporting, the kids they could care less. But, they went through where their Etsy phase, trying to Poshmark. I don't even know this, but they sell their old
Wait,
clothes.
what is that?
They sell their old clothes online. I think their old jeans.
Wow.
Etsy. I know a lot of folks. They use that like if you do like homemade stuff that you want to sell, or it's like a marketplace. It's almost it's almost like Amazon, but it's more focused on, like I said, those who have like those maybe skill sets they want to, like if you're into woodworking and you make stuff, you can sell it.
Handmade or homemade product. That was the niche. Then they started allowing in the print-on-demand automated product, and it kind of diluted the.
That's the part I didn't know. I knew Etsy, but I didn't know what Poshmark. I didn't know. I never
Poshmark
heard that term.
was something like they were selling. It's a whole system. All I know is a daughter posts a pair of jeans, and they provide the label and the bag and the shipping. You don't have to do any of that, and they do all the tracking. I don't know, but so that was I was just dad. I gave him the money to go buy the product, the packaging. But I think ultimately, it's a balance. I mean, I need to stay on top of my career, and advance, as the technologies advance, and keeping up with all the technologies and how they're going to play together, and also wanting to, make Firewall Coffee more successful. I think it's got a great niche, great place. It's just I have to find time to get it escalate up to that level.
Right, and so that's a good segue to the most. We're gonna take a little breather here. Since you are the founder of Firewall Coffee, we have to ask, right? What is your go-to roast that helps you get through a busy day of project management and cybersecurity, and balancing Firewall Coffee alongside that? And what inspired you to create that particular brew?
I drink them all. I love a dark roast. I love escalation espresso roast. All the blends came from looking at the roast that the supplier could provide me, and then trying to bring them to fruition with different product names. The escalation response, incident response for us, command line. Because then I started looking at what are brandings that align with cybersecurity, align with technology, align with technology project management. So after coming up with those names of roasts, then it was pairing them with the right bean, and then trying to write up, a description of how making that description evolve technically, but also a blend of coffee. And one of my pet peeves is I work with all of the various creators for my store and my products is I said, I don't want pictures of coffee mugs. I don't want pictures of coffee beans. This is a technology focused roast. We all know what coffee is, and everyone seems to go back to wanting to put a hot steaming cup of coffee, next to the box. I'm like, no, I want a keyboard. I want a monitor. I want,
There you go.
I want something that says technology. We know what coffee is. So yeah, it's a balance. I spend a lot of my weekends on Firewall Coffee if I have the time, and then after hours at work, the same thing. 9-10 o'clock at night, you find me down in the man cave, kicking out ads, or maybe working with the designer, kicking out another package. But not having a full understanding of the evolution of the product, how to deploy that product, understanding all the connectivity when it comes to your store, to your card processing, to your affiliate marketing. All of these things you didn't know. It,
Yeah.
and bringing it all together, I finally feel somewhat accomplished. That I made it this far and haven't given up. Um,
Go ahead,
I
brother.
think that's a great. I think what you said is actually, I even say reassuring because you don't need to have it all figured out. I think the main thing that I take away from, of course, you have your passion, you have the idea that you want to get out there, and then just kind of work from there. Yeah, I know I went through it, as you getting started, and I'm thinking you gotta have, everything all lined up and perfect, but then you're just gonna get to the point where, I mentioned it, where you just get into this analysis paralysis, where you're trying to make sure you got all the I's dotted and T's crossed, and you have everything all set
right,
up, and then you end up not doing anything at all. You just staying in one place. So at some point, you just have to just do it, and then you start working. As you mentioned, you connect with mentors, you connect with folks along the way that help give you guidance, and as
right,
you make adjustments, you make tweaks. Certain things you'll find out, you learn. But the main thing is that, as you go through it, yeah, certain things you find out, certain things work, certain things might not work. But the main thing is that you did it, you went through it, and now you have this new knowledge. Because you say, you didn't have this knowledge before going in,
right.
but now you're getting it, you're learning. So I think that's the main thing. I think that's a great lesson, even for those who are just getting started, maybe maybe want to get into be an entrepreneur, to say, you don't need to have it all figured out. Just know it is what it is, what your passion is, what it is that you want to
Right.
work on, and then I think that's enough.
I think the two points I would give as mentoring someone who's thinking about making the jump is you have to be willing to learn, and
Right.
you have to know how to learn. And how to learn for me was knowing how to use all the various forums, all the various Reddits, all the various places that made sense in your niche,
Right.
to go get the data. And then you start exploring, trying to figure out, well, who do I trust? Who could give me the right answers? And they're not going to come for free usually. Some will. But ultimately, to make the next jump, it was worth investing in Joe Roberts and his wisdom, because that's really what I wanted was his wisdom. I wanted the fast track to get to step 5 real quick, which
Yeah.
is what he got me to, which was, branding, and the naming of the product, logo design. It was him redirecting me to stay focused on those parts, because I would start overthinking and get broader and broader, and he would keep me narrowly focused, and he got me to that point. And without that big step, then the rest of it wouldn't have come to fruition. So you have to be willing to learn. You got to know where to learn from. Meaning, just go out and and find your information, your forums, and find the people that you can trust to mentor you, in the direction you want to go.
100%, Rick. So that's well received. And I do want to take a minute because you taught us something even now in the Cyber Coffee Hour. One, first, the escalation roast did not last for me. It was actually pretty good. So we decided to put Firewall Coffee on our link tree. And since I don't have a shelf, I'll hold it up here. This is the command line roast, which you pointed out. I didn't realize there's a very great branding and detail on the back. So I'll just take a minute, right? Dried fruit, citrus, light body. I didn't notice that the first time I got this box. This roast is like a well optimized script, light, bright, and full of energy, bursting with vibrant notes of dried fruits and citrus. It delivers a lively taste profile that keeps you sharp and refreshed, much like a well-timed system reboot. Boom. Thank you for that, because that speaks to me as a coffee drinker and an IT professional.
Right.
The other side that I noticed, and shout out to the other side of Firewall, because they made our introduction to. So this is the first time on the Cyber Coffee Hour that we actually reached out to a coffee maker in our history of the show. So the last part I'd like to say, over a clock for intense flavor. That is, it's the small details for me too, because now I feel like I have to step my game up as a podcaster and make like a shelf that shows like so right now on our link tree we have your product featured on our main profile and bio. And then for the coffee maker listeners, if you're interested, you could go there and click and buy all the brands that we are sampling from Rick Weaver. The second thing is he is the coffee maker. So shout out to Rick Weaver. Thank you for joining us. And you will now find Firewall Coffee on our link tree and all the brews that we've sample from Rick Weaver and Firewall.
Cheers. Thank you.
So, Rick, if you could have any superpower to help you in cybersecurity, you said you want the ability to detect the intent behind every action on the network instantly. So, can you explain what makes that kind of insight so powerful, and how it would solve some of the biggest problems you face on a daily basis?
I think, as we all know, knowledge is power, and being able to see all of the events happening at one time. We almost do that now, but having that superpower to be able to take that information in real time from every tool that we use and turning that into an immediate response. I think we're almost there actually as AI evolves. So unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it. But as soon as we get AI involved, then the quantum computing will take over and wreck cybersecurity as we know it.
It's almost here, right?
Yeah, it's here. Yeah, just thinking that every encryption password it will become null and void as quantum computing takes over the world. So I think that would be a great superpower. Ultimately, I think not having that information and not being able to devour in real time the events that are happening around you, either in your life or in cybersecurity. I can go back to the days when we didn't know what was going on, or we had to go back and look at the log 24 hours later and sift through it and try to find that one entry time, that came from that IP that makes sense. The old days, like reading green bar paper, to do today where, having the insight to all the data in real time is incredible. But with that said, having access to all that data in real time, now look where cybersecurity is. It's even more intense than it ever was.
So I picked up a hint there, right? What is green bar paper?
You don't know what green bar paper is?
No.
Oh,
There you go. That's that expert knowledge.
old school white and green bars on dot matrix fed paper.
Oh, I've seen them. Okay.
So
Wow.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember biggest vivid memory I have of a big stack of green bar paper was my uncle Jerry, who was a Washington D.C. Police detective in stolen autos. And this shows you how old this is. We would pull up at a stoplight. I do ride-alongs with him in D.C. And we'd pull up at a stoplight, and he'd go look up that plate. I'm like, you got this book. And I'm like, how do you even get there? By the time the light turns green,
Right.
he had some sort of methodology. He could get right to that, look that plate up. So we're talking looking up license plates on green bar paper from a front seat of a police car to what do we have today? Flock cameras doing, license plate scanning in real time.
I think that was the only time I seen that was 20 years ago. My first help desk job. Once you said it, the printer.
Yeah.
I think that's the only time I've seen. I've never
We used
seen
to
it
dump.
since.
We used to dump. We've dumped syslog out to a dot matrix printer so we could read it quickly, versus scrolling on a monitor and use a highlighter to highlight, whatever event we were trying to focus on an IP or whatever event, that was in the syslog. So
Wow, we have come a long way as a
We have, and then
civilization.
we're gonna come of age when we ask someone. So when I thought when I heard the green, I thought Scantron.
Yeah.
But there's no more of the green Scantrons anymore.
No.
So kids are there like, what are you talking about?
Right.
Oh boy.
So Rick, to wrap things up, we discussed your professional journey and your work at Thrive in great detail, but it's clear you're just as passionate about what you do outside of work. So to conclude, please share with us like what you gained from building and maintaining your home lab, Area 52, and running your coffee brand, Firewall Coffee.
What do I gain? My passion is technology, and as much as it's my passion, it's probably my wife's bane of existence because everything in the house is automated, controlled by a computer, voice control, this and that. And way before the wireless, Bluetooth light bulbs, it was X10. X10 was a whole another set of frequencies and modules, and she just wants to turn a light on or off with a switch, and I'm like, no, it's 2025. We don't do that anymore. The lab evolves over time, depending on what I want to work on. If I want to do something cybersecurity, I'll spin up a a Kali desktop and go do some magic off to the side. Or, if we're looking at deploying incident response, I can spin up a bunch of different servers to do scanning or this or that, log collecting. So the lab has just been there because for that reason, and it's evolved from before I was in cybersecurity, just standard, information technology, from routers to switches to virtualizing desktops. And, I used to run a Citrix shop where the engineers would, call center had 500 Citrix users. So virtual desktops, that's another bane of my existence, virtual desktops. So Area 52 has been, that name came from a good friend of mine who was also in IT. He helped me build this house. When I built this house back in 2004, I pulled 56 runs of this hybrid jacketed cable that has 2 RG6s, 2 Cat5Es, and 2 multi-mode fibers. So about 60 runs in this house. And it all goes down to a corner, and it comes down to a Y that goes down to that data center below me. And, as I started building out the racks, he just walks in one day, and he happens to be holding a beer. This is Area 52, I know it. So it's
nice.
So he pretty much blessed it. He gave it the blessing.
He coined it Area 52. It's been Area 52 ever since.
It's kind of cool,
yeah. That's awesome, man. I mean, and from what we saw, I was gonna share, like, from what we saw earlier. I mean, you could pretty much host a class from there, man.
Or didn't see, right? Because
it's honestly impressive, man.
There's fiber internet, but then it fails over to Starlink, and then if Starlink is giving me troubles or whatever, I fail over to Verizon. But Verizon's horrible on my side of town, so cellular. So at least I got 3 paths to the internet besides whatever neighbors I need to borrow it. No, I'm kidding.
Was that PDU a little green person walking around accidentally on purpose? They tripped the PDU on purpose. And so for our coffee maker listeners, we did see the lab, but there was an incident. Prevented us from actually getting it all recorded. Okay.
I didn't plan on doing the show from up in the office. They planned on doing down from the data center. But lesson learned. If we do episode 2, I'll make sure I'm better fitted for running the episode out of the basement.
And do you run Firewall Coffee from the lab? That's what the one part we didn't know.
No, it was come to fruition. Like every storefront, Shopify owns my storefront. So when you're a remote worker like myself and you're at home all day, I sit in this office for at least 10 hours a day. So one thing that helps me switch mindsets is to change my room. So I'll go down to the basement, down where you saw. Down there is also Road Dog's basement bar. So I usually will pour myself a bourbon, and then I'll go walk into the Area 52, and I spin into Firewall Coffee mode, and whatever that mode happens to be, whether it's packaging, marketing, trying to figure out, who I can work with, to promote the product. So that's kind of, I switch gears that way. My passion and my hobbies are always technology, and it's, always thinking how can I evolve it? What can I make it better? I got a plug-in EV car. I spent months figuring out how I can use that battery, to back up my house. It's all I cared about was, hacking the car so I could take the power from the 15 kilowatt battery pack and run it into my house. It has been it's been my DNA, having technology around me. Also, I'm a ham radio operator. I'm not nearly as in depth as my father, but he got me involved younger. And it'll pay off when the grid goes down and telecommunications goes down.
He says when. 5 by 5. So wait. So that's something I actually struggled with too. Wait, you kept it up to date throughout the years, or how did you just recently? Oh, wow.
I have a low end license. My father has the top end radar endorsed, whatever license. I don't know if it's general or advanced or what it is now. I have the baseline technical license, limited on bands I can use. We did some 6 meters, some 10 meters, and some 2 meter conversation, but not nearly as involved in it as I'd like to be, because I know that there's a lot of data products, frequencies that can be used for data transmission, so if the internet were to go down, a handful of us amateur radio operators could actually build a bridge between 2 points of the internet, wirelessly to bridge internet traffic temporarily in some sort of disaster. It's having that technology and capability that keeps me in the hobby, although I don't use it as much as I used to. But it has its purpose, and the purpose of a hand radio operator really is to provide communication, in a state of emergency. So
100%.
when you see, a natural disaster, us ham guys, you give us a battery and a radio and an antenna, and we can make it happen. And that's what we do, and that's the purpose.
Right.
That's the reason why I maintain it.
Nice.
That's
And Rick,
awesome.
so you're convinced the internet's going to go down. Can you include some resources in your disaster recovery plan, and we'll
Yeah,
include it in the show notes?
I mean, look at the recent Microsoft and AWS, issues. One data center, can create downstream train wreck.
Yeah, break the whole internet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Rick, we had an amazing time having you here on the show on the Cyber Coffee Hour.
Ditto.
But before we let you go, if there's anything you want to share with our listeners,
Live life and love it, my friends.
Nice.
there you go. Enough said. Enough said.
It's, I'll keep the philosophy simple.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
And clean.
Yeah. So that's a wrap on another episode of the Cyber Coffee Hour, part of the Alive Podcast Network. We hope you enjoyed our chat with Rick Weaver. Don't forget, you can find more amazing shows like ours on the Alive Podcast Network app. If you'd like to show your support and keep the coffee brewing, you can contribute to the cause by checking out our link tree and donating to our Buy Me a Coffee platform. A huge thank you to all of our listeners. So please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the show. So until next time, stay safe out there and keep brewing. All right. That's it.
Not only buy you coffee,
We're
buy
outta
you
here.
Firewall coffee.
Peace.
That's right, coffee makers.
Absolutely.